Hello, Mastery Algebra 1. This is more lesson 11-4. This is the second video on adding and subtracting rational expressions. We're going to look at adding and subtracting rational expressions with unlike denominators. So again, we are back to example 1 and 2. We are going to have some problems where in the denominator we have just multiplication, and we have to find a lowest common denominator. And in example 2, we're going to have binomials now, or trinomials that we're going to have to, if we can factor, and then find our LCD, or lowest common denominator. Please refer back to example 1 and 2 for extra help. We're going to jump down to number 1 and find the sum or difference and express in simplest form. What we're going to have to do first, because the 15m squared and the 5m squared are not like denominators, we're going to have to find our LCD. Okay, the best way to probably do this is to break up our denominators into common factors and see what's common in both of them and what we need to make each denominator. So if we take the 15m squared, we know that that is 3 times 5 times m times m. If we take the 5m, we have a 5 times m. So if we're looking for our lowest common denominator, we know that we need both a 5 and an m in both. So we need a 5 and an m. Now to make the 15m squared, we also need a 3 and we need another m. So if we put our LCD together, we're going to need 5 times 3, which is 15m squared. So that's the lowest common denominator we need for either 15m squared and 5n. So we're going to put 15m squared. We do have a plus, so 15m squared. What we're going to do, remember, is we have to multiply to the side of the fraction what we are missing in order to make our 15m squared. So if we look at the 15m squared, and we look up here at the top, 15m squared times what equals 15m squared, and that's just 1. So we're going to only have to multiply a 1. And then to the other side, we have a 5m. So what are we going to have to multiply to 5m to get 15m squared? So this 3, we're going to have to multiply by 3m that's missing. Now if we multiply, 7 times 1 is 7, plus 9m. And if we combine, because we have the same denominator, we have 7 plus 9m over 15m squared. If I rewrite this in standard form, we have 9m plus 7 over 15m squared. Now what we have to do is revert back to the first part, and also a little bit of the 11.1, 11.2, and 11.3 is there anything we can factor out and then cancel? Because this is a plus in the middle, okay, technically parentheses a binomial, we cannot take out a 3 with the 9 and the m, or cancel the m with the m squared. So there isn't anything we can factor out on the top. So our answer is 9m plus 7 over 15m squared. Alright, number 3. We need to find our LCD. We have a 4 and a 5. So a 4 is equal to 2 times 2. A 5 is equal to 5, or 5 times 1. So if we put this together, in order to get the 4, we need a 2 and a 2. And in order to get the 5, we need a 5. So we need a 2 times 2 times 5, or 4 times 5, which is 20. So our lowest common denominator is going to be 20 and 20. Now we look at what times 4 equals 20. That's going to be 5, so we have to multiply 5 times m. And then what times the 5 equals 20, and that is 4, so 4 times 3m. Combine and put these together all over 20. We're going to get 5m plus 4 times 3 is 12m. Combine 5m plus 12m gives us 17m over 20. And then now we look to reduce. 17 and 20m, nothing reduces, so there is our answer. Number 5. Again, we're going to start with the lowest common denominator. We'll take the first left side, and we have an m, and that's just an m. If we take the right side, we have a 3m, and that is made up of a 3 times an m. If you notice, we have an m in both, so we do need an m. And then the other thing we need is a 3 for the right side. So our lowest common denominator is going to be 3m. So we go over here, we have 3m, we have plus 3m. Okay, so to the left-hand side, we just have an m, so what times m equals 3m? That means we need to multiply a 3, and then we're going to multiply that 3 to the top. So we have 3 times that binomial, m plus 1. And on the right side, we have a 3m. We're only multiplying a 1 to get 3m, so we can leave this as m minus 3. If we put everything together, we have to distribute this 3 to the top left. So we're going to get 3 times m is 3m plus 3. And then we'll have the right-hand side, which is plus m minus 3. And this is all over 3m. By combining like terms, we have a 3m and an m, which gives us 4m. And then 3 minus 3 gives us 0. So we have 4m over 3m. Now, if you notice, we can cancel. We have an m on top and an m on bottom. So our answer is 4/3. All right, one more. Let's jump over to number 6. On 6, lowest common denominator. Left-hand side, we need an x. Right-hand side, we need an x, and a y, and a z. So we have like denominators. We need an x. And then to make the right-hand side, we still need this y and z, so we have to put the y and z down. So our lowest common denominator is x, y, z. So we have x, y, z, and then there's still a plus, x, y, z. So we look at this left-hand side. What are we going to multiply to x to get x, y, z? And so to the 7, we need a y and a z. So 7 times y and z. To the right-hand side, we have x, y, z. To get an x, y, z, we just have to multiply 1. So we're multiplying that 3 by 1. So we can leave the 3. Now that we have like denominators, x, y, z, we can put them together and we have 7, y, z plus 3. We cannot combine the 7 and the 3 because they are not like terms. So there's our answer. Remember, we cannot cancel out the y's. We cannot cancel the z's because of this plus sign. You could put parentheses suggesting that that is a binomial quantity that we cannot cancel unless we have the same binomial. Your turn's going to do 2 and 4. Hit pause, and then restart the video to check your answers. Go. Welcome back. If you notice number 2, you should have gotten a lowest common denominator of 6y squared, multiplying a 2 to the 11, multiplying a y to the 7. Therefore, we get this negative 7y plus 22 over 6y squared. On 4, our lowest common denominator was 63, so we had to multiply a 9 to the x. We had to multiply a 7 to the right-hand side, the 2x, and we end up getting negative 5x over 63. All right, next page. We're going to jump over to number 8 now. On number 8, our LCD. For the left-hand side, we need an s and then 2 t's. For the right-hand side, we need 2 s's and a t. So if we put everything together, we need an s, we need another s, we need a t for both, and then we need a second t for the top. So our lowest common denominator is going to be s squared t squared. If we go here and we put this s squared t squared, s squared t squared, one modification we can do with subtraction is if we factor out this negative from this whole right side, or change this to a positive, we can put the negative on top, and it looks a little easier as 2 minus 3. So we're just changing the fractions to an addition sign, but placing the negative on top to the whole quantity. So if we look at the left-hand side, we have s and t squared. How do we get to s squared t squared? We need to multiply an s to the 2. Okay? And then to the negative 3, we have s squared t, and we need to multiply, or it's missing a t, so we're going to multiply to negative 3. We're going to multiply a t. If we put everything together, we have 2s, now minus 3t on top over s squared t squared. And then we look again to simplify or factor out. If there isn't anything we can factor on top. We cannot cancel s's with t's because of this subtraction sign, so our answer is this. All right, number 10. Now we are looking at and we're throwing in, if we're concentrating on the lowest common denominator, now that we notice we have addition signs in the denominator. So we have binomials. So one of the little easier to say is if we put the whole binomial on the left, so we need a k plus 5 on the left. We need a k plus 3 on the right. So if we combine those denominators, our lowest common denominator is, if we multiply those binomials, is k plus 5 times k plus 3. So we have k plus 5 times k plus 3, and then k plus 5 over k plus 3 for a denominator. If we change this subtraction to an addition and then just make the negative 2, what do we need to multiply to this k plus 5 to make it k plus 5, k plus 3? And notice it's missing that k plus 3. To the right side, we have k plus 3, and it is missing to make the denominator. It's missing k plus 5. So we're going to multiply k plus 3 to the top. We're going to multiply k plus 5 to the top on the right. By doing that, we get k times k plus 3, and then we have a negative 2 that we distribute. So we have negative 2 times k plus 5. If we simplify, distributing k times k gives us k squared plus 3k minus 2k, and then minus 10, all over k plus 5, k plus 3. Now what we want to do is we want to combine like terms and simplify on the top and put it all over our denominator again. So we have k plus 5 on the bottom, k plus 3, and on top it gives us k squared minus k minus 10. Hopefully you notice we have a trinomial on top that's a quadratic, and then two binomials. Hopefully we can look to simplify, or if we use our Xbox factoring, we have negative 10 on top, negative 1, so we have to figure out what times what equals negative 10 and multiply and adds to get negative 1. And if you're thinking, all we have is 10 and 1, 2 and 5, 5 and 2. If we switch around negatives, there is nothing that we can factor. So our answer is k squared minus k over 10, or minus 10, over k plus 5, k plus 3. Number 12, another step. Okay, we have another subtraction problem. Change this negative to a positive, place the minus on the m. Okay, one thing we want to do is we want to look at our denominators. So of our LCD, we have a 2m minus 3 on the left. We want to make sure that that is factored out completely, just in case it does have any common factors with the other side, and there's nothing we can do with that. If we look on the right hand side, if I rearrange so it's in standard form, we have negative 4m plus 6, or we can take out a negative 2. So if we take out a negative 2, you're left with 2m minus 3. So our lowest common denominator that we need, on the top we need a 2m minus 3, and we also need that on the bottom. But on the bottom we also need a negative 2. So our LCD, or lowest common denominator, is negative 2 times 2m minus 3. So to the left-hand side, we have a 2m minus 3. We're missing the negative 2. So to the 5, we're going to multiply by negative 2. And then on the right-hand side, we have a negative m, and it's missing nothing. It has the full denominator if this is factored at negative 2, 2m minus 3. So we can just multiply the negative m by 1. If we simplify the top, we're going to get negative 10 minus m all over negative 2 times 2m minus 3. Rearrange into standard form. So we have negative m minus 10 over negative 2, 2m minus 3. One thing we can do to hopefully notice the m is negative, so we could factor out a negative 1 and make this m plus 10. And then we have negative 2 and 2m minus 3. So can we cancel our binomials? The answer is no. The one thing we can do is a negative divided by negative is a positive. So our final answer is m plus 10 over 2 times 2m minus 3. All right, one more. 14, we have n plus 2 over n squared plus 4n plus 3 minus 6 over n plus 3. We need to find the lowest common denominator. Okay. I'm going to change this plus and put the negative on the 6. You may leave the minus sign. Okay, the first thing we want to do is look at this trinomial. Can we factor it to a binomial? So over here we have 1 times 3 is 3. We have 4. What times what equals 3 but adds to get 4? Hopefully you see it's 3 and 1. Because the coefficient on the n squared is a 1, we can write n plus 3 and n plus 1. Okay. So if we write our denominators down, on the left-hand side we have n plus 3 times n plus 1. On the right-hand side we have n plus 3. So the n plus 3 is common in both, but we also need an n plus 1. So our lowest common denominator is n plus 3 times n plus 1. To the left-hand side, to the n plus 2. What's missing from the denominator? We have an n plus 3 times n plus 1 to make an n plus 3 times an n plus 1. So we just have to multiply by 1. So we have n plus 2 times 1. And to the right-hand side, negative 6. We have n plus 3, so we're missing the n plus 1. So we have to multiply n plus 1. If we combine like terms, multiply and simplify, 1 times n plus 2 gives us n plus 2. And then if we distribute the negative 6, we're going to get minus 6n minus 6 all over n plus 3 times n plus 1. Negative 6n plus n gives us negative 5n. And 2 minus 6 gives us negative 4 all over n plus 3 times n plus 1. Now we look to, can we factor? Can we simplify? There's nothing in common with negative 5 and the 4. The binomial is already broken down, so this is our final answer. All right, your turn. You're going to hit pause. You're going to do 7, 9, 11, and 13. When you finish, restart the video. Check your answers. Go. All right, welcome back. Number 7, you should have gotten negative 10a plus 7 all over 6a squared. Number 9, you should have gotten 7z plus 8 over z minus 4. 11, negative 17r minus 32 all over 3r minus 2 times r minus 5. And 13, 3w minus 4 all over 3 times 5w plus 2. If you have any questions still, please check with a neighbor or see your teacher as soon as possible. And the last page, more practice on 11-4. If you get stuck, please see your teacher as soon as possible. Check your answers at the bottom of the page to help practice for your mastery quiz. As always, do your best to get the rest. Bye for now.